Meo here. I wanted to tell you a little bit about how we make the Souls and Stardust podcast. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, so let me explain. It's free, and they have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can actually make money from your podcast as well with no minimum listenership. So it's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to the Souls and Stardust podcast. I'm Meo.
And I'm Shannon.
We're two soul sisters navigating through our human experience on a journey towards healing. Join us for a candid and fun discussion on all things spiritual, soulful, intuitive, and magical. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Souls and Stardust. Today we're going to be talking about empaths and HSP, which is actually highly sensitive people. But before we get into that, Shannon and I wanted to talk about some of the reviews and feedback that we're getting on the podcast so far. We got a couple on our iTunes saying that it's the best podcast ever, so we really appreciate that. But what's really touching is that getting text messages from people and direct messages from people with emails with multiple paragraphs of how it's affecting them, and not just the synchronicities, because that's kind of the cool stuff that's happening where people are like, oh, as I'm listening, like right now it's 11:44 as we hit record, but then people are going, oh my god, as I'm listening to it too, like I just saw 44 here and 44 there, whatever. So I just want to read some feedback. So I said, okay, I'm sorry I'm late to the party, but Shannon is telling her story and it's speaking to my soul. Her teaching and being exhausting and all of that. I'm like, being like a scientist background, that's how I like to think too. I fully believe in you and your gifts, and then I've never doubted you. But I've also had that logically driven mind, which holds me back intuitively. But I love this podcast. OMG.
That's awesome, right? Yeah. Oh, that's so great. Did you have any more?
Yeah, I have one more that I wanted to share, and then I'll let you share some of the ones that you got. So, hi, Meo. Just finished episode 1 of your podcast, and it's very interesting. I've had intuitions myself, and they've been happening more and more intensely and frequently. I've also suspected I've been an empath for a while now. I've been really struggling with my mental health lately and doing a lot of mental health awareness for first responders, as well as being in therapy for several months. And this is the part that stuck out to me the most, which actually kickstarted why we wanted to tackle this episode next. The best way I could describe it is I'm like John from the Green Mile, where I'm absorbing everyone's negative energy and no outlet or room for positive energy. So I'll leave it at that. But that is exactly why we wanted to tackle today's topic as well.
Yeah, that was.
But you got some emails that were really good. That had me almost in tears.
I know, right? I've been getting messages, people sliding into my DMs on Instagram, and then also sending messages just how much they appreciate the fact that we're two friends just sitting and having a conversation about these topics that you're not gonna like have on the street with just the normal Joe Schmo, right? Because it's a very vulnerable conversation that we're having. A good friend of mine who I've known her for a number of years now, probably 3 years now, she had said with this last episode, I know for years you have been telling me about what you think is going on in my body, and I totally got it all of this time. I got it and understood it, but was trapped in this health, what the hell is happening thing. Then I heard Meo start talking, and holy fuck, I was struck with someone saying exactly what I've been trying to say for 2 years, 5 years probably, if I'm being honest. Her talking about her awakening hit my soul. And she went on for another several paragraphs about how she was, just by listening, she was able to connect all of these dots together finally. Like that was the catalyst, and be able to move forward in her journey toward healing, like physical healing and emotional healing. So that was really profound. to be able to read that and then to share it with Meo, which was so nice.
That was, yeah.
Yeah. And another person who sent me a quick message on Instagram had said about one episode in particular, I think it was the You're Not Crazy, It's Your Spiritual Awakening episode. She said, this is so good. I just finished it last night and explains so much for me. And this person in particular had been asking me questions over the last couple of months about intuition and how do you know this and how do you work through that. And so she was really excited that we were going to be putting out episodes anyway, but to have her like respond and say how much it's helping her understand her own life, that's really meaningful to both of us. And it's actually, yeah, it's what I signed up to do, right? Like I knew I wanted to help people, and this is going to be one way I was going to help people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very fulfilling and rewarding to hear that people are resonating and that they finally, even just reaching out to us, that they feel like we're a safe place and safe people that they can talk to, because you can't just have these conversations with regular people who have no idea what you're going through, or they think you're too sensitive and that you just need to toughen up and you need to just do this and you need to just think positive. And it's like, okay, no, I'm physically feeling these things. I'm physically, like, I'm experiencing this. So we are here. Yay.
Yes, to have this conversation. And keep in mind too that when we talk about empaths and highly sensitive people, this is the tip of the iceberg, right? So this is meant to be an introduction, and we will, throughout our conversation, direct you to places that you can go for more information or to dive deeper. And chances are we both have some pretty incredible stories about being empaths or highly sensitive that will help you understand the way that it can manifest in your personal life too. And we just really want to say thank you to all of you who are listening. And if this resonates with you and you think it's going to help other people, please pass this podcast along to those you think will be helped by it. We would appreciate that. And the more people who become aware and can awaken to themselves, the better.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So Spirit is already here, and Spirit has already been present. My headset is going crazy, as well as when we tried to go live first, it thought there was a third person on our call. So it's like, I just feel the energy of like Spirit has something to say. So
yeah, my body is actually vibrating, and that's a very good sign that like we're really in flow. It's also Mercury retrograde, so, and it's Halloween. Yay! All kinds of incredible like
shit going
astrological
on, huh?
And yeah, all kinds of crazy mystic stuff going on. Okay, so let's start out with first defining, because I'm trained as a scientist and I feel like I have to define terms. But what is empathy? So we want to talk about what an empath is and what a highly sensitive person is, but we first got to define what empathy is. And that is really the capacity to understand or to be able to feel what another person is experiencing from within their frame of reference. So it's putting yourself in their shoes, in their situation, and trying to really imagine what it would be like to be them in their body, in their situation, and feeling what they're feeling. It's really about connecting with somebody and having empathy, having strong feelings in conjunction with them for what they're going through. And then, so an empath is someone who is highly aware of those types of emotions that people have around them. So to the point that those feelings are felt within themselves as their emotions. So that might have been kind of a confusing statement, but whatever somebody near you is feeling, an empath would be feeling those feelings, potentially not sure if they were their own feelings or if they belong to someone else. So that's the tricky part about being an empath, is if before you know what's going on, you feel all sorts of shit, right? From everything around you, and you don't know what's going on. You can feel very scattered and confused. You can feel overwhelmed. A lot of people just really want to seclude themselves, pull away because it's quieter. They don't feel as much that way. But an empath is just highly sensitive to and highly aware of what others around them are feeling. And that is not just emotions, it's also pain points. It can be
Yep.
physical pain or
Yep.
illness. So it's being very tuned in to the body, the physical body, being tuned into the emotional body. And an empath can also be very good at sensing someone's intentions or where they're coming from. So that's super fun, right? And can be a little bit creepy at times too, right? Because you can just tell. You can just tell. And we touched on that a little bit the last episode. Like you can tell when somebody's creepy, right? Because you can sense where their energy is coming from and what their intentions are. So that's what being an empath is. And then I just want to define what a highly sensitive person is, because an empath and an HSP, they're not necessarily the same thing, although an empath is most likely a highly sensitive person too. So an HSP is somebody who feels more deeply than others. They can be also easily overwhelmed by external stimuli, right? And internal stimuli.
Me.
So yeah, right. This can be crowded spaces or really hectic, busy environments.
The noise.
It can be sights, sounds. It could be the emotions of others, of course, and it can also be like an HSP person will be very in their thoughts, like processing, over processing, right? And that can be a pretty substantial stimulus as well. Like laying in your bed thinking about that one sentence you said 5 years ago to that one person. And you're still like dissecting it and feeling horrible about how it all went down, right?
And I can feel the embarrassment all over again.
Like, yeah, all of the emotions. So that is actually a sign of being a highly sensitive person. You take these thoughts and you dissect them layer by layer by layer, even like very simple information, somebody's name, somebody's birth date, somebody's address, right? We dissect it, these different layers, and create metaphors, and it spurs our creativity, and we get all distracted by that kind of stuff, and then we're exhausted, right? So an HSP will be sensitive to emotion, mental responses, environmental stimuli, and that can all work together to be very overwhelming if they don't know how to manage it. And we just, as a highly sensitive person, everybody's sensitive, right? We all have sensitivities, but somebody who's an HSP, it's like to the max, right? Like 1,000-fold,
like I can
greater.
hear if someone leaves the fan on in a bathroom, like
you
somewhere
can hear it
across the house or across the building, and it will drive me absolutely insane because I'm like, someone left a fan on.
Yep.
Turn it off.
Yep. And a lot of times people who are HSPs have grown up hearing things like, you're too sensitive, or you need to toughen up, or what's the other thing that's you feel too much.
You'll learn to zone it out. As a mom, like hearing the noise level of the kids and the TV and the electronics, even if they have a toy that's going off and nobody's playing with it, that is like the one thing where I'm like, turn it off. I can't. I'm going to throw it out the window. Like I can't.
I am
and people are like, you'll learn to zone it out. And I'm like, no.
I am the same way with my kids. Like the TV will be too loud or they'll be yelling and screaming. And I physically have to get up and move to a room across the house to like decompress from that. And my husband is always like, just tune it out. Can't you just tune it out? And I'm like, I can't. It's not just a hearing thing. It's like it presses on my body in a certain way. And it's like, it's very constricting to me. And he's very intuitive person himself, but he's not a highly sensitive person that way.
I can't even like going to the Strip, because I live in Vegas. And so unlike normal locals that stay away from the Strip, I actually go there and go to, watch shows and eat dinner and stuff like that. But while I'm there, I have a shelf life. I
The
can
shelf life.
I can
Meo's gonna
only
expire.
no, that's literally what it feels like. It feels like there's a countdown as soon as I leave the house where I'm like, okay, how's traffic? How's the noise going there? Once I actually get there, is it,
Mm-hmm.
if it's not something that is in alignment where I'm like, can be fully
Mm-hmm.
submerged into,
Submersed. Yeah.
yeah, that sounds like a weird word, right?
It's
um,
good.
so it's not like if I'm gonna go watch a concert or something, I've even left concerts early before the headliner got there because I couldn't take the amount of people surrounding me. I made it through like the first two people, but kept packing more and more people in there.
Mm,
And before the headliner came out, I was like, I need to go. I'm done. Like that's it. And even just my cousin was in town. I think I was telling you, like she
yeah.
came in and went to the strip, go out to dinner, go grab something to eat, whatever. And it's not like we were doing anything uh crazy or like
Mm-hmm.
it was just like, all right, I'm spent. I'm done. I've had
Mm-hmm.
my fill of people. Like
Yep.
I need to go home and get into my pajamas and decompress and
Yep.
debrief myself and wash it all
Absolutely.
away.
You're like textbook highly sensitive person. And I know
I've
you've
kicked people out of my house on Thanksgiving at 9 p.m. and was like, everybody get the fuck out. I need to, everybody needs to go
it's
home.
time. It's time to
Y'all
leave.
ain't
We
got to
need
go
quiet.
home, but you got to get out of here because I've had enough human interaction for today.
Oh, that's hysterical. And it's interesting because you talk to people and there are a lot of people who just they don't believe this is a thing. And there's actually some really fantastic research in the field of psychology now and neuroscience that are trying to identify what it is that makes somebody so much more sensitive. And
Ooh,
apparently 15 to 20% of the population has a specific gene that makes them more sensitive or highly sensitive. And then one of the
fantastic.
tests that you do, yeah, so they've been able to figure out like that it's part of your DNA, right? That makes you more sensitive. You have something turned on and it's like at a higher volume than some other people. And
Oh,
there's a
that's
certain
cool.
test that they do. It's called sensory processing sensitivity test, where you are exposed to a lot of other like a lot of various things, right? Different stimuli, and how you react to them and how you measure yourself against their metrics helps them to determine whether or not you have sensory processing sensitivity, which is one of the benchmarks for being a highly sensitive person. And the
Okay.
beauty of that is like people who are so sensitive at this level, they also are processing their experiences much more deeply.
Uh-huh.
Their feelings, their thoughts, their anything that stimulates them, they're actually taking it in and processing it. These people, HSPs, tend to be more empathic, obviously, artistically creative, intuitive, hello,
Right?
highly aware of what other people need. So a lot of times
Yeah.
highly sensitive people will be therapists, counselors, artists, musicians, writers,
Even as a
psychic.
mom, right? Even as a mom, being aware of my kids' needs and not just knowing that they are different personalities, but
Mm-hmm.
for example, I'm thinking like when Ezra has a meltdown, he doesn't, he needs everything to stop and he needs snuggles. Like he
Yep.
needs to be held while his nervous system calms down
Yep.
versus the threat of, you know,
I'll
whatever.
take this
Or,
away, or do you have,
yeah,
yeah, yep. Yep.
yeah. And then that turns into adults who have nervous system issues and then they need a hug or they need
They
whatever. They need to go and isolate themselves
mhm.
or, whatever it is that will bring them back to being grounded again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's so interesting because both of us are HSPs, but we're also very empathic. And
Yeah.
it was really fun to like pull together the list of signs and characteristics of these, because I was checking, like as I was putting the list together, I was like, holy shit.
Totally. And
I didn't think I was that sensitive, but now I'm looking at
yeah,
this list and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm pretty sensitive.
the HSP or researching HSP a few years ago is what kickstarted finding out that I was empathic or that I was
Mm-hmm.
intuitive, because couldn't figure out. And I think it was the very first episode we talked about it, like why
Mm-hmm.
certain people's energy affected me certain ways. But then like I remember, I used to work at AAA, and they in insurance. So I was in a cubicle in the back for the longest time where it was a lot quieter. I had my own spot. I can hear, I could like focus on what I was doing. But then as soon as they brought in some more people, they moved me to the front of the office where the acoustics for this place, all of a sudden, the radio was like 10 times too loud.
Mm-hmm.
The fluorescent lights, I can recall multiple instances where fluorescent lights, I'm just like, I can't, it's so bright. Fluorescent lights really do it for me, where I'm just like, oh my God, I need, even when I'm in the car, I put the shade down and my sunglasses to get as much shade as possible, because
Yep.
the noise, the light, and then the people, because now when I was in the front of the office, now people would line up to go to the DMV that was inside the building, and they would stand and hover around my
Oh,
desk.
dang. So you
And
were like pushing
I
back
was
everybody's
I was
energy.
pushing everybody back, and I couldn't figure out why. I would get in my car and I'm like, radio off. I've had too much, like, why am I 10 times more exhausted now that I moved to the front of the
Mm-hmm.
office? And it was just like, oh, well, fucking no wonder why. Like, look at how bright it is. Look
Mm-hmm.
how loud it is. Look how many more people are crossing my path on a daily basis and
Yep.
stopping me to ask me stupid questions, to interrupt me. And you already know how much a Taurus hates being interrupted. Like, don't fucking do it. So it was just that combination. I was getting in the car and just like,
Yeah. So you need your
so
sigh of relief, right? Breathing down yourself like off of that ledge.
totally
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is when you're highly sensitive, which can include being
everything.
empathic, right? The the biggest issue is how do you deal with it? Like, because you become overwhelmed, you become exhausted, you get burnt out quite easily depending on what's stimulating you. You can also have a really, really, really big issue of absorbing all of the stuff around you and not releasing it from your body. So
Yeah, and
why,
how many people think that they're suffering from anxiety without
or well,
pinpointing the cause of it, right? When it's like,
yes,
look at this
exactly.
stuff that's making you anxious subconsciously, but you're not even realizing, because you're sitting in the same office every day that you go to. Nothing else has changed, but then
Mhm.
you're like, why do I feel different? Why do I feel anxious? Or
Yeah.
your
I
thoughts
also,
trying to catch up or whatever.
yep. I also think about things like not just anxiety, but like depression. The having symptoms of depression, over the long period, this is overstimulation, exhaustion, burnout over the long period. Like depression
Checking out, yep.
could actually be, in some cases or
Contributing,
many cases, yeah.
yep.
Or yeah, like this contributes to those feelings of depression because you are so sensitive. And
Anything that's going to throw
especially,
you out of balance or out of whack,
mhm,
like if your baseline level is total chill, calm, relax, anything that's going to
mhm,
put you above or below that, you have to figure out like what what is it around me that's stimulating me? Is it
mhm,
I can't put my phone down and I'm obsessively checking things? Is it
mhm.
like I don't get any quiet time to myself? Am I not grounding? Am I not doing these things? So,
Yeah. So this is fascinating that this is, oh God. So Spirit's amazing, right? Because we asked for the words to come through and we're getting all the perfect words for
yeah.
this. We wanted to be able to convey to you, the listeners, what is it like? What are the checklists for being this kind of person, an empath or an HSP? And then how do you actually manage this? Like because that's the most important part. It's a real gift. It's a
Mhm.
gift to be this sensitive. There's
To be
so
able to
much,
feel.
yeah, so much information, so many layers of insight that are available to you, including like, compassion, right? Like being an
Mhm.
empath is a gift because you get to feel so much and have, you know, amplified compassion for people around you.
Yeah.
But when we don't know how to manage this energy, it can make us sick. So, we'll go through the checklist, and then we'll talk about the ways that you can actually
Yeah.
feel better about being an empath, like managing your energy better. So, and
Yeah, because
we
we
both
can't
have,
just lock ourselves in our room every
no,
day.
and you don't want to be a victim to this, like
Yeah.
this sensitivity, because that just perpetuates this whole feeling or your reality of like, this is awful, or I'm miserable. And it doesn't have to be the case at all. Like, I love my sensitivity. Sometimes it's not so awesome, but I love that I get to feel other people to the level that I
Because
do.
then
It
I can
makes
I
me,
can literally tell them, oh, this is what's wrong with you, or this is what I'm
mm-hmm,
feeling, and they're like,
yeah,
oh my God, I didn't even
yep. It's
notice or
very
realize. Or
healing.
yeah, incredibly. Okay,
Yep.
so let's go down this list and then
Here we
let's
go. Yep.
keep chatting. Sorry.
So I'm going to do a list of the signs of an HSP first, and then we'll go through the signs of an empath. And some of these will actually overlap a little bit, and it will be obvious to you. And then, Meo, wherever you have a story about something being really resonant, just seriously
Okay.
chime in. So signs of a highly sensitive person: you have a real problem with violence and cruelty of any kind. Like, it'll make you very upset or even
Mhm.
physically ill. And that's me. I cannot watch movies. I can't watch war movies. I can't watch movies where anybody's being attacked, hurt,
Mhm.
like spoken to in certain ways. It makes me feel very agitated and uncomfortable, and I cannot do it. I can't do it
I
anymore.
can watch movies, but if it's real life stuff, if I'm in public and I see two people getting into an argument, a heated argument
Mhm.
that could lead to a fight or something,
Mhm.
that makes me physically ill and I start panicking like I need to get out. But I also think that has to do with past trauma of being like in a drive-by shooting where it's
Oh,
like
sure. So a
I
little
can
bit of
see
PTSD. Yep.
like a PTSD coupled with the sensitivity is like, no, I know how this
Mhm.
can end. Don't like I don't need to be near this or whatever. So
Yeah. I also noticed with I can't read certain genres of books anymore either. So, like
no more trashy romance.
post-apocalyptic. No, like I was thinking, like, I read the Hunger Games trilogy. This was probably like 8 years ago already. And when I finished it, it stuck with me so strongly. Like, I was dreaming about it, and I just felt really off. And I realized, like, I can't, like, just the energy of that story. It's a great story, right? A lot of people
Yeah.
loved it, but the energy of that story really stuck with me, and I had a hard time shaking it. So I have to avoid that kind of information and entertainment now, as being a sensitive person.
Freaking news. I
I
can't watch the news.
Nope, we don't watch it. My husband watches it, but I don't watch it anymore either. I figured if something really big is happening, like, I'll hear about it, but it's the
Yeah.
energy of the news is really hard on me too. Um so another sign is being frequently exhausted, especially emotionally exhausted from absorbing other people's feelings, and not knowing where your feelings start and end and where another person's starts, right? So we can talk more about that toward the end and how to
Okay.
actually identify that.
I'm like, otherwise we're never gonna get through the checklist. I wanna add
We
so much to
will.
each of these.
I know, right? That's because we got
Okay.
so much to say.
Okay. Oh,
Time pressure, for somebody who's really sensitive, time pressure really fucks with you, right? So, like, that's me. I get pretty rattled when I've got to get somewhere, like, and I'm
oh
always
yeah.
late too.
Well,
I'm inevitably
bitch.
like 5 to 7 minutes late, right? But
There's a grace period.
time pressure really, really bothers me. It
As
causes
a
me anxiety. Like, I guess it's like poor performance, or this is me too. Like, I have a million things on my to-do list, and there's just never enough fucking time to get them done.
oh my
And
God.
that's like, that bugs the shit out of me. Another sign is having to withdraw often, whether or not you're an actual introvert, but you've identified that you need a lot of downtime or alone time or quiet time in order to feel sane or to recharge.
Yep.
And that's definitely me. I have to, like, sequester myself in a room for half a day away from my family just to, like, get my feet under me again. Something that's really funny, and it made me laugh when I was putting this list together. You startle easily or you're a jumpy, right? So even in safe situations, somebody can like walk up behind you and say something and just scare the shit out of you, because what's happening there is, for an HSP, your nervous system is already dialed way up, right? Because you're like sensitive to stimuli all around you. Yeah, right. When I saw that, I was like, oh,
this makes sense.
yeah.
Why I can gasp and like suck in all the oxygen in the room when something happens.
Exactly.
Like, it's okay.
And it happens to me all the time, and people actually think it's pretty funny, because it's like, how did you not hear me coming? I'm like, well, I don't know, but you still scared me.
I was in my thoughts. I was in my head.
Yes. Another sign is just thinking about everything really deeply. So lots of self-reflection, lots of deep pondering of like the secrets of the universe type of shit, right? And then a lot of overthinking. So like going over your day, going over your own experiences over and over and over again. And the problem here is we can be really prone to negative overthinking that really gets us into that spiral, and then we really need the alone time to just kind of like chill. You're a seeker, right? So you look for answers to really big philosophical questions, or you're looking to learn these big lessons. So what is life? Like, what am I doing here?
Yep.
There's a lot of
There's
like,
what's more than this. There's gotta be more than this.
What's my purpose? Why are things the way they are? And what is my role in it? So tell me the secrets of the universe, spirit, I'm listening. So that's somebody, you know, who's highly sensitive, because you can feel so much and you're thinking about all of this already. You want the answers to it. This one's kind of funny. Your clothing matters. So anything that is scratchy or restrictive could potentially really bother you. And
this bra has to go.
Yeah. But my son, my older
socks,
son,
if they're too tight.
Yes. So my son, I don't have this problem with like fabrics, like that doesn't bother me. But my son, who's 8.5, like for, I swear, 2 years straight, like we had to go buy all these different brands of socks, because every time he'd put one brand on, he'd be like on the floor, rolling around in tears, screaming because they don't feel good. And I just was like,
and he's a water baby, right?
No, he's an Aries.
Oh, okay. I think it's the other one, right? Yeah, but
well, they're both Aries, but one is very close, like to the cusp of Pisces. And I actually have to do their charts again, because I can't remember what their moon and rising signs are, but I suspect that they have a lot of water in their charts. So yeah, for him, clothing is like, I don't like how this feels, mom, you know. And so we go through, oh my gosh, so much stuff. Getting the right outfit that feels good. And so
Zanaya was always big about the tags. This tag is bothering me. This is bothering me. This, and it's like, how did you even feel that? Like one little, I can feel like if it's like one little piece of hair, I'm just like, I feel it stuck in my eyelash.
Yes. And then it bugs you, right? You got to get it. I'm that way about those subtle feelings, but like I've never had the restriction or the scratchy clothes like obsession. So, but other people may. Another sign is that your pain tolerance is less, right? So you feel your headaches more, you feel your body aches more, you feel your injuries. And for me,
what about the opposite? Like you also feel your pleasures more.
I know. I mean, like it could be that, like everything's amplified, right? If you think about your nervous system, your body, like I can't remember what, like if you're to take all the nerves in your body and like stretch them out, they can go around the entire earth like 2 times or something ridiculous like that. Yeah, my 6.5-year-old told me that the other day. I was like, oh wow, that's amazing. On so many levels that you're telling me this. But so like your nervous system, like your body is just full of, you know, nerves that are giving you information all the time. So it makes sense that somebody who's highly sensitive, whose nervous system is jacked up all the way anyway, you would feel your pain more. I tend to be okay in this way. Like I'm very aware of like body aches and pains, but it doesn't like cripple me. I just know that I have to listen to my body then and decide what I need to do about it. Let's see. Oh, as a young person, a highly sensitive person would have like a inner world that's very alive and present. So imaginary friends, playing a lot of fantasy games, daydreaming, like we think they're not paying attention or they have attention deficit disorder. Turns out they're just really
In their
sensitive
mind.
and tuned in like to their inner world, which is not a bad thing. And actually developmental psychology is like now understanding like this isn't a bad thing. It's like we don't need to put them on drugs all the time in order to get them to
Good.
pay attention, right?
Yeah.
As an adult, this inner world is really could be like really vivid dreaming, and imagination in terms of creativity. So there's that. Change can be very upsetting to you. So being out of routines that create comfort for you or that might limit your overstimulation, like when you change out of that routine, all of a sudden you're like, oh fuck, what am I going to encounter now that's going to
Yeah.
send me over the edge?
Yeah. I get flustered very easily
Yeah.
when there's a shift that
Yeah.
is like, yeah, I feel
Yep.
that.
Totally. Um, let's see. Sometimes you're just misunderstood as somebody who is highly sensitive. Like people will label you as shy or anxious or quiet or introverted, when in reality, it's just you like understanding that you need to pull back and invest your energy wisely or protect your energy wisely, I guess. Mio, you're going to love this next one. You get hangry easily.
Oh God, that's definitely me.
I know, right? So I was reading this list to my husband and he's just like, wow, that's not you. That's not you at all. And I just, of course, he's being sarcastic, right? And
You're
I
like,
mean, it's because
yeah.
the extra sensitivity, it can trigger changes in your blood sugar levels, right? And it can also mean that you're more susceptible to feeling those blood sugar changes. So it's like the two sides of the coin thing going on.
Totally.
Yeah, and you get hangry and that's stressful, and that's totally me too. I get it. You're very sensitive to stimulants and also the other way around. So like caffeine can make you really jittery, just a little bit of it, or on the other side of that, alcohol or other drugs can really, you can feel the effects much faster. And I know we talked before about alcohol in me, like it does not take me very long to feel drunk. Like one drink and it's like, wow, you gave me 10 beers, right? You
Right.
must have given me 10 beers. No, in fact, you only had
Did
like
I
four
get
ounces of
roofied?
wine.
Like,
And
yeah.
so
And
you
I'm not
just,
laughing at that. I'm just laughing at like how it feels when you're like,
yes,
oh, I.
it really hits you much harder. And so I realized like I have to just use less of that. And most recently, like alcohol just does not agree with my system anymore. So I have to step back from that completely now. But you just have more sensitivity to downers and uppers.
Totally.
So another thing that highly sensitive people feel, we mentioned this already, but I wanted to add to this point, you feel conflict very deeply. And Mio talked about being very uncomfortable when she sees situations where people may get into a fight or there's heatedness going on. A lot of times, because highly sensitive people feel conflict this way and it makes them uncomfortable, we tend to be conflict avoidant, which is not necessarily a very positive thing for our own lives when we are trying to navigate relationships or create boundaries for ourselves in career, parenthood, friendships, all of that stuff. So that's an important point to consider. You don't want to avoid conflict. You want to learn how to manage conflict in a very positive, gentle way. Another sign is criticism. Man, it feels super harsh to people who are highly sensitive. Like positive words lift us up and amplify our energy, and any criticism or negative words or judgment is like getting a knife through the heart. And man, I struggled with this. I still do. Like I struggled with this as a young person. And like I was a teacher at the university level for pretty close to a decade. And every semester, freaking A, man, every semester we'd have to do teacher reviews, right?
Oh shit.
And I'd have to drink like half a bottle of wine before I could get like open my review
Oh
packet and
God.
see how I was scored out. I would get like 99 positive reviews, and one review from somebody would say like, I was awful, didn't know what I was doing, and this or that. And it would just
Yeah.
kill me. It would
Yeah.
devastate me. And yeah, so just like,
Like,
and I,
yeah,
in,
even knowing like where I would fuck up on something and like
mhm,
whether it's drop the ball or whether I was like looking back, especially in my career, there were times where I was going through like really stressful, like we talk about postpartum and where my head
mhm,
was at and how bad I was dealing with things. Like in amongst that turmoil, there was some other stuff where like I dropped the ball uh, work wise. And it wasn't something that I did wrong. It was like a malfunction that like a memory card malfunction, and it was like the first
mhm,
time that had ever happened to me in like 5 or 6 years. But I took it because I felt so bad and awful about it, and it was like I
mm.
was sick for days over
Ugh,
it and just
it's the
replaying and
worst.
beating myself up and like,
Mm,
why did I order that? Why did I try to, like, you try to go back and it's like, it's done, like.
I hear you. That it's hard when you get stuck in that loop of how could I have done this differently, or I shoulda, coulda, woulda, but really like you can't do anything about that but move forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one last thing that I wanted to mention about HSPs is that, we're often seen as, well, we are very perceptive, and
Hmm.
in that seeing and sensing things that others tend to overlook.
Hmm.
Um, and often described as wise beyond your years, and bringing more compassion and understanding to the world. So you just, it's like you move through life differently with more depth of feeling or more depth of understanding, and just seeing the world differently. So that is another characteristic of highly sensitive people. You notice
Hmm.
the beauty that's in everything. So in music and nature and artwork and people, even like I find myself looking at people at times and
Hmm.
I think, God, that
And you're
person, and it's not,
beautiful, right? Like,
yeah,
not even physically, but it's
yeah,
just
not
like
just
you have a
aesthetics.
beautiful soul.
Yes, yes, like the
I,
energy or the
I'm
way
like,
you
I
carry
really
yourself.
like your energy. Like, you feel
Hmm.
really good to be around.
That is the best compliment, isn't it? Oh my gosh. I love it.
When
I
people,
love
I
it
love
when
when people
people
are like,
say
I feel
that.
so much better after I talk to you. I'm like, good. That's an intention that I
Amen.
actually set out, is that when people are done talking to me, I want
Hmm.
them to feel loved or some
Yep.
sense of healing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I want people to leave after an interaction with me. I want people to just like feel good.
Hmm. I had a client yesterday. I see her every couple of months or so, every 3 months. And so she came for some Reiki energy rebalancing. And she's this very sweet woman moving through deep grief. And she said to me at the end of
Oh.
the session, I really enjoy, because I do on my Metamorphosis Healing Facebook page, I do like daily card draws for the energy. And I've been doing video posts lately because it's just faster and
Yeah.
easier. And she said, I really love when you do the video posts because I feel like I get to see you and I get to hear your voice.
Hmm.
And it's like you're speaking directly to me. And she said to me, it's like I get to be healed by you every day.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, seeing you and hearing your voice. And I was just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, right? Like,
But I swear, that's like some of the feedback that I've gotten, even just about our podcast so far. Not just, oh, you two sound like just a couple girlfriends chit-chatting and having conversation, but people are saying like, uh, I love Shannon's voice. Or it's so soothing.
yeah, I mean,
I'm like,
what a nice compliment. So
like, read me a bedtime
obviously,
story, Shannon.
right, let's create
Just talk to
meditations.
me until I can sleep. Yeah, it's not a bad
Well,
idea.
and that just goes back to like you and I meeting, and you and I starting to like do the creative thing and really figuring out like we everything was pointing toward us doing this, like just
Yeah, yeah.
recording our conversations and then allowing other people to listen to it, because they're going to get something out of it. So like, I totally trust the universe 100%. And we can have a whole episode about what that means to be in that place of surrender. But yeah, so I love doing this. And I like, yes, we appreciate the beauty. We appreciate the beauty in
Absolutely.
someone's energy. All right. So some signs of what an empath is. And this is
All
all about
right.
feeling. And again, like, tell me your examples if you have any,
I
Meo.
got you.
But
I got you.
empaths tend to take on other people's emotions as their own. And like I said before, sometimes to the point of not knowing what's their own and what belongs to somebody else. And that's like the critical point where people get really bogged down and exhausted. But what's going on there scientifically is what they're theorizing is that because it's not really known how or why this works, but the theory is that empaths have very active mirror neurons in their brains or their nervous system, and that's the part of the brain that reads emotional cues from other people. So it allows empaths to pick up on these very subtle cues in expression, body language, voice tone, all of this stuff, and we take that information in. Yes, and it gets like decoded in our bodies as our own lived experience through feeling. So we're able to take that information, take it in as a piece of information. Problem is, if you don't know what the fuck's going on, that
you'll think
can
it's
be
yours.
you think it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be overwhelming, draining, exhausting, confusing.
So when I do a mediumship reading, which is when I can connect to people's loved ones who have transitioned to death, they've lost their body, but their consciousness and their feelings and their emotions and their memories are all still very much alive.
Mm-hmm.
So as an empath, what this looks like for me is when I meditate, I'm clearing out my whiteboard, basically. I'm clearing out my emotional space and saying, move my emotions, thoughts, and feelings out of the way, because then when this person's consciousness
Mm-hmm.
is blended with my own, I can then feel what they feel. And this can be actually dead or alive, because I can tune into somebody who's alive very much so and pick up on their issues. And I think it's like, because scientifically it's like the brain being the receiver.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like being the computer, being the thing, but then it's like the consciousness and the things that we actually store or feel aren't I don't know how to describe it, but
I mean, it's really hard to describe intuitive experiences.
it's very difficult to tell you that when I sit across from somebody and they let me tune into them, that I can feel their anxiety, I can feel their nausea if they're pregnant and haven't told anybody yet. I can feel their head spinning around as if they're dealing with so much anxiety. I can feel
Mm-hmm.
when they're truly sad. Like there's times where before I've done readings, like I like total overwhelm with grief and sadness, and it's like, oh, this isn't mine. This isn't mine at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned, okay, all right, God, okay, spirit, if it's not mine, make it go away.
Yes.
And then when I talk to the person or get it out of my system or realize that it's
Mm-hmm.
not mine, the minute I realize it's not mine, it's gone.
It goes, yep.
Yeah.
Which is an excellent point that we will revisit when we talk about how to manage this, because that's key. Yeah, that's key. So something else that happens for empaths is you can experience like out of nowhere, sudden, overwhelming emotions, especially when you're in public. That's because you're in close proximity to other people having emotional experiences, and you're going to feel that.
This is, that's
which
why it's
is
so
very
funny that I'm into weddings.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it makes you more personable as your photographer too, because you're able to read that situation very easily, which brings us to the next point. The vibe in the room matters to you because you're able to sense, you're sensing and feeling the atmosphere of a room. If it feels good, if it doesn't feel good to you, and it will depend on whether it's a calm, peaceful place or if there's just really heavy negative energy, like you can feel that. And as an empath, something that doesn't feel good to you will drain you so quickly.
Yeah.
It's a very sophisticated system of giving you information that we wouldn't normally perceive, like with our other five senses. So I always see it as a gift, right? Being able to feel that stuff.
Totally.
So yeah, and this is totally appropriate. The next point is you typically are able to understand where people are coming from,
Uh-huh.
intuitively sensing like what they're trying to express, how they're feeling, and what they can't get out. Like you feel the feeling behind it, so you're able to help them put it to words. And it's about connecting with them on a
Yeah.
level that is beyond words, and that's a really beautiful thing to be able to do
Yeah.
if you're able to do it without absorbing their emotions, right? So once you learn how to not absorb that as your own, you 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 shouldn't have a problem with it. Like once you learn how to manage that energy, and there are some empaths who just have no problem at all. Like they just rarely absorb it. They feel it, they let it go, and then that's it
I'm
for them.
working on
So
that.
yeah, it takes
It's
some
getting
practice.
easier. It's getting
Mhm.
easier, but sometimes my own intuition will scream like you need to stay away from this. Like
Yeah,
this
well,
is
and
not your
that's
battle. This is not yours to deal with, but like you can from far away you can send your peace and your healing, but there's some
mhm,
times where my intuition's like, mm-mm,
not yours. Yep.
not yours. Yep.
And that's important I mean, that's telling you how to move through your life, right? Or that moment. So it's intuition. It's beautiful. Um, People tend to turn to you for advice. You're frequently sought out for words of wisdom, support, or encouragement because we tend to be good listeners and we
Yep.
respond from the heart, right? So people understand that. And then we just instinctively know what needs to be said. And I can't tell you how many college students I had come into my office when I was a professor, and I didn't have an assignment to be an advisor, but people would come to me because they didn't
Yeah.
feel like their advisors understood them. And so they'd sit in my office and I'd be like, so have you ever thought about doing XYZ? And they'd be like, oh my God, I love that stuff. And it's
Yeah.
because I can see them and feel
Yeah.
it in them. I can see them doing these things that they love. And I'm like, well, did you know you can like study for a career in that? And they're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, no, I didn't know this. Right. So it worked to my advantage and their advantage to be able to tune into them and just be like human with them and feel their frustration or feel their confusion and then help walk them through it as somebody who's done this before.
Right.
Um, Again, violence and cruelty are very difficult on us. But something else, the different side of this is like we just cannot contain our love for babies and animals and companion animals like pets and
Feel good
um,
things.
yeah, the feel good things. And honestly, I'm so connected to my dog that I have now. I'm usually connected to my animals, but so connected through the heart space with my current
Mm,
dog. Like I feel her. We have conversations, like we have understanding. And my husband is just like, she doesn't listen to me. And I'm like, well,
because you're not listening to her needs.
you're not talking to her the way that she understands, right? So
Yeah.
it's really funny that empathic connection you can have with babies,
Yep.
animals of all kinds, and pet like companion animals. And babies will look at you with a sense of knowing and they will smile because
Uh-huh.
they are connected that way first before they have words to
Yep.
speak. And that is
Yeah.
so lovely.
My early days as a family portrait photographer, I could walk into someone's home and they would be like, "Sorry, my son might take a long while for him to warm up to you," and within 5 minutes he's sitting in my lap,
You're like, I
like
got
my best
this.
friend.
I got
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
The baby whisperer. That's
Baby
amazing.
whisper.
So something else that's interesting is empaths can be very overwhelmed in intimate relationships. And that is because you're sensing everything. You sense shifts in mood, you sense irritation, you can sense lies. Yikes, right?
Oof.
And
Yep.
also cohabitating means that you are always immersed in other people's energy without much refuge. So this is why
Dude.
I'm like, there, like if my husband's traveling for a week and he gets home, I'm like, I am going to go away for half a day and it's going to be like, that's just what's going to happen. And it's because I need to remove myself to regroup. And because everywhere you are, you're with someone else's energy. And it's very important for us to have a space.
Especially when you have if you're the primary caregiver and the kids are just so needy of your attention. And by the end of that, it's like, okay, I need to detach for a second.
Yep. Yeah, it is. Some people say it's a gift and a curse to be this sensitive, but you just, once you learn how to manage it, I just see it as a gift, an advantage. But we tend to be able to not be able to see somebody in pain without wanting to help them, right? So wanting to alleviate someone's pain or suffering, and then having this very calming effect on someone.
And not in like a codependent kind of way sometimes, or it can be a codependent kind of way if it's unhealthy, but it's almost like, I think that's part of like the healer, like some people are healers, and that's just our natural inclination to go and like be there for somebody, be there for a friend, even if it's emotional support, not just physically hurt. But
well, and empaths typically tend to be drawn to fields where they are a healer, acting as a healer, right? So teachers, doctors, nurses, energy workers, psychics, people who are doing work with people on emotional healing or physical healing. So it's because we can connect into that, and we're so drawn to the need to want to alleviate somebody's suffering because we feel it with them, and then that opens your heart up, like, and compassion spills out, right? So that's what we tend to be drawn to, is wanting to help people. Unfortunately, we can exhaust ourselves in the process, and so now we're moving into ways to manage this. I tell people, like, who are having trouble giving so much of their energy away, or who are highly sensitive and they're having trouble absorbing everything, I tell them the first thing is, it is not your responsibility to take on somebody else's hurt. You can witness for them. You can have compassion and empathy for them and with them. But it is not your job to solve it for them, right? Or to take that on as your own. What you're doing is walking with them by feeling it with them, but then you let it go through you and out. And is like, who are we to learn somebody's lessons for them, is what I say a lot. Like, it is not your right to do that. It's your right to do that for yourself, but it is your right to witness for another, not to solve it for them.
They all got their own soul journeys and soul lessons they need to learn. And
and the more you can work on your self-esteem and confidence as an empath, the healthier you will be in managing other people's effects on you, their energy effects on you. Because you're so sensitive, you're confused and overwhelmed a lot. And the more love and respect and trust that you have for yourself, the less that you will suffer from the bombardment of everyone else's energy. And so, like, you're just in a better space. You won't feel like collapsing in on yourself and, oh God, I'm not good enough, no one loves me. It's like, because you're feeling all this stuff, right? Like, the more you're solid within yourself, the more you love yourself, the more you have confidence, the easier it is to manage all that energy that's pushing on you.
Part of that's when we go back to recognizing what's yours and what somebody else is too. It's that confidence level of like, okay, I know myself so well that I can tell when there's an intruder.
An intruder or an entanglement, like quantumly entangling with another person's energy.
Totally.
And so, just to reiterate the point that you had made prior, is that once you realize, you ask spirit to help you understand what's yours and what belongs to someone else. And once you realize, that it's not yours, then you say, okay, I release anything that does not belong to me or is not of my own experience, like emotionally, right? So you can intend that, and you can ask spirit to help you. Like, I don't want to hang on to those things. Oh my gosh, my answering machine just went off. That would be spirit talking to us. Yeah. So once you're able to identify what is not yours, you can, like, just intend that you let go whatever is not yours, and it should dissipate. Those feelings should dissipate. And that gets easier with practice. But you have to be vigilant about that kind of a practice. Like, it has to be part of your daily
Mm-hmm.
routine where you come home from your day and you just say to yourself, I let go of anything that does not belong to me, anything that's attached to me, all the emotions that are of someone else. I let that go. I let it go. I let it go. And that should be part of your spiritual practice for yourself in order to help you feel more calm and sane. Not insane, and sane.
And sane.
And sane. Something else people will say, like, if you're a highly sensitive person or an empath, you really need to shield yourself from other people's energy. And while I would agree, like, that's what you might have to do when you first realize, so that you can understand how you need to manage it, the idea of shielding yourself or protecting your energy from someone else's, that like puts you in a victim mode, right? Of like, there's all this stuff coming at me and I'm just a victim to how sensitive I am. And so I would say, like, whenever you're reading anything about that, like, just like rewrite that story and say,
Okay.
okay, I can open myself to this experience, but I don't have to let that energy stay with me. And there are situations that you want to put up a bubble of light, right? You don't
Mm-hmm.
want some of that stuff hitting you. And then, so you do that. And the bubble of light is just like love and light surrounds you. It can be a certain color. And then all of that negative stuff bounces off that bubble of light and all the positive stuff comes in. But so I would just caution, like, this idea of like shielding yourself. it,
Yeah.
it can it can close you down to a certain extent.
Um,
And go
yeah,
ahead.
I was talking to my friend, and we were a couple different friends actually, and one is a firefighter, and so he's legitimately out there fighting fires, but also dealing with a male dominant industry
Mm-hmm.
that's conditioned to not feel and to protect themselves and to protect others. And you have to deal with so much that you see. And
Mm-hmm.
talking to another friend who's also on the law enforcement side, and it's like you have these people who are basically like trained to not feel,
Mm-hmm.
to dehumanize them, and it's so, desensitize and dehumanize them in,
Desensitize,
in
yeah.
in so many ways. And it's like, if you're an empath in a position like this where every day it's crisis, every
Mm-hmm.
day you're dealing, and your coworkers are people who have PTSD,
Mm-hmm.
you have PTSD, the people that you're saving are going to have PTSD if they're losing kids and car accidents and
Or
fires, and
homes, yeah.
they're at the most highly emotional intensified part of their life, and
Mm-hmm.
you're there on the front lines being a first responder to that. It's like, how do you protect yourself? Because this is the job you signed up for, this is
Mm-hmm.
where you chose. And so, for some people it's like, well, it's too late, I'm already 10-20 years deep, and I just,
Mm-hmm.
I got to retire because this is
Yep.
the plan. But it's like, what do? How do these people that are cops and firefighters and
Mm-hmm.
EMTs and nurses in the ER that
Mm-hmm.
deal with human and pain, people of pain and suffering, like in
Mm-hmm.
crisis mode all the time, like, how do you protect yourself from that?
I know. And I would say, like, there's a level of having to like shore up your resources and without turning off your ability to feel, because that's what's going to make you so good at your job, is the ability to feel. But what you don't want to do is absorb all of that negativity that goes along with it, of the fear, the anxiety,
Okay.
all of that stuff. So then really focusing on how to learn to let those emotions flow through you and out, rather than like holding on to them.
Yeah.
And so, but like, part of this would be incorporating a number of things that are cathartic, right? So into your daily life, so that that energy moves and doesn't stay. And that could be like journaling, it can be meditation, it can be like jogging or walking out in nature, it can be singing and dancing. It's these things that help you move that energy and
And
let
right,
go.
yeah, move the energy through, like, as well as raising your vibration, raising
Yes.
your mood.
Yep.
And showering for me is like
Yes.
that's like an instant win for me. Even my kids, like, or even like
Yeah.
Zanaya, when I can tell like she's had I'm like, you need to go shower and you need to go
Mm-hmm.
envision everything from the day washing down the drain.
Yes.
And
Yep.
you're rinsing your soul, your whatever, your
Mm-hmm.
energetic field. You're
Yep.
rinsing everything down the drain. And even just the visualization technique of that helps, because it's like, okay, I'm letting it go. It's going down the drain.
Yep.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Same with Epsom salt baths, which Epsom salts will neutralize the field, cleanse the field that way. And
that's why I
so,
love floating too, the float tank therapy.
yes. Oh my gosh, the salt. Yes, for sure.
It's
Super
salt,
healing.
and then you're not fully immersed. It's like, well, it's like you're floating in like 11 inches of water, but then
Mm-hmm.
it's quiet, or you
Mm-hmm.
can
It's
have
dark,
meditation
right?
music on. It's dark. It's not completely, but you could do like blue, red, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because the lights will also, but it puts you into that meditative and trance like state,
Mm-hmm.
where once you can calm your body down, and
Mm-hmm.
because think about it, go back to the brain, go back to the nervous system. Once you can calm
Mm-hmm.
yourself down to be at that baseline level, then you can start receiving and clearing out.
Yep.
and
You just let it go.
and
So,
physically your
yep.
body's not going to hold on to all of the tension, because like if you're
No.
stressed out, not only like mentally and emotionally you're doing this, but you're triggering all like your cortisol levels and like the
Yeah.
stress
Yep.
hormones and all that
Mm-hmm.
to go haywire.
Yep. So your body is physically, mentally, emotionally letting go. So meditation is actually really good for this too. Any kind of
Love.
movement is good. I actually every day, especially, so I would suggest for somebody who's highly sensitive and empathic, to get regular energy work done, either
Hmm.
Reiki therapy or some other form of energy work that helps them to clear their body. Um, and I smudge myself every day pretty much, and
You have to, yeah.
with the intention that anything that is not mine is cut away and released for the best and highest good of all involved. I say that every day and clear my energy field that way. Also, like a slower, simpler life, right? Like it just comes down to going back to basics. What's going to help you feel less overwhelmed is slowing down, more time to do tasks, more time to make decisions, slower paced
Not
socializing,
feeling
time,
rushed all the time.
yeah, time for you, having quiet space, definitely time to wind down after a busy day. And so you can process what has happened, or just like take that shower, or take that bath, or just go meditate. I actually find like going and having a really good cry helps a lot with letting go. I've had some really intense
Trapped emotions.
experiences. Yeah, had
Yeah.
some clients go through intense experiences the past few months. And the only thing I could do to let go of that was to just sit and sob by myself, just to let it go, let it go, let it go. Um, and sometimes
It's
that's what needs to
release.
happen. Yep, leaving the body.
Yep.
Something else that helps empaths and highly sensitive people is to just have those relationships that are really close and meaningful with people that you can talk shop with, diving deep,
Yeah. I
talking
can't
about
I cannot do the shallow. I don't
no
have
small
time
talk.
or
Nope.
energy for small talk or bullshit friendships. I do not have time to fake it with people. You're either my
No.
people or you're not. And
Yep.
when
Yep.
when you're mine, you're mine, and we you're my friend now.
Yep, you're my first. You speak
You're
my
my friend now.
language. Oh my gosh, you speak
Yeah.
my language. I'm so glad to meet you,
Yeah.
right? So like having those kind of relationships where you can just be real and authentic, and they understand you for
Because you don't have to
who you
hide parts of
are.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want
You
to
can be
hide
yourself.
either. Hmm.
Yeah. But
And I would say definitely anybody who's sensitive in this nature really, really needs to spend time outside. Either you're going around barefoot or you're walking through the forest. And then being in situations where there's a lot of curved edges or round contours as opposed to sharp angles, because those are harsh, right? And where you can
yeah,
be very stimulated by visual things and
the
nature.
aesthetic of things.
Yeah.
And my Libra friend Chanda will probably just love this part of it, because she's also like everything's about aesthetic and looking good and feeling like it's pretty. But when you, for me, it's like I had to clear out the clutter. I didn't realize how much clutter like can accumulate when you have kids and stuff, and even just how much, even in my early 20s, like how much shit I accumulated and would just move with me from place to place to place. And it's just like, this is visual clutter as well as mental clutter. It's just, it
Yes.
weighs you down, and it's just like, why am I
It's
storing all of this extra stuff? Like what?
it's stressful.
Like I cannot concentrate, focus, or feel completely relaxed if I'm around clutter.
Yeah. Isn't that's so interesting. I'm the same way. It really
But I'm
bothers
not
me.
but it's like, but if you come to my house, you can tell, oh, people live here. But it still
Definitely.
drives me insane when I'm like, dude, put your shoes back, put this back, just put it back where it belongs. Like, put it back.
Yeah. So that wraps up our list of characteristics of highly sensitive people and empaths. And hopefully, it's given you some information or insight on how you are walking through your own journey. If you are sensitive like this, chances are, if you're listening to this, you probably are.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we wanted to end on giving you a couple of resources to do your own research and understanding more about the empath's journey or highly sensitive people. One book in particular that I haven't read it, but I know a lot of people who have, and they said it's really helpful. The Empath's Survival Guide by Judith Orloff. I hear it mentioned in a lot of discussions about empaths. And also Dodging Energy Vampires by Christiane Northrup. And that is more about like understanding that you are a sensitive person and how to actually not become so, how to protect yourself. There are people who will suck you dry in terms of your
Totally.
energy. Yes. So that one is very helpful in showing the reader how to navigate different life situations, what to look out for, how to create boundaries around your own energy and who you're helping and who you choose not to, based on how your energy will be affected. And then, of course, like you could just go to good old Google and type in highly sensitive
YouTube.
person,
Yeah.
or YouTube, type in what is an empath. And there are a ton of online, my dog just sneezed. There are a ton of online resources available. And, just use your discernment about the websites that you go to, though. You'll know if the information feels
You'll
accurate or
feel it.
not.
If you're sensitive, you'll feel it. That's how I scoped things out on YouTube and whatnot. It was like I could feel if they seemed like, if I resonated with them, or if they feel like
Mm-hmm.
schmoozy or like weird energy, or that they're
Or
into
just not
something.
like, it's just,
I don't know.
yeah, or it's just not truth. Like you can feel when something is truth or when it resonates. So just ask, like before you do searching, just ask for the information that will be most helpful to you, that's what you find. So anything
Perfect.
else?
No,
Yeah.
I feel like we covered pretty much a lot of it, and we'll kind of be going and navigating. We have a list of things that we want to talk about for each episode, but what I feel like is happening is the more feedback we get from people, whether it's the DMs or the text messages or whatnot, that's where I feel like Spirit's kind of guiding us on what to talk about next. So we do have
Mm-hmm.
just a whole bunch of interesting topics, and we also want to get some guests on, who are like us, but then also get some guests on who will let us do some readings on them for fun, and
Oh, yes.
um, just to
Yeah.
show, because it's one thing for us to sit here and talk about these things, but I kind of want to show people. Oh my god, my headset's totally glitching out. I can hear it in my ear. It's one thing
Ooh.
to talk about it, but then it's another thing to showcase how it works for us, like realistically. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
yeah, so
Well,
thank
you
you so
guys,
much. I'm
thanks
so
for,
excited.
yes, we are. We're just ridiculously excited about doing this. And we talk about it all the time to each other, like how excited we are. So thank you for joining us for another episode.
All right, we'll
We will
catch you later.
catch you
And
all later.
please, yeah, share this podcast or leave a written review on iTunes so other people can find it as well. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll catch you later.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for for joining us for another episode of Souls in Stardust. Connect with us on Instagram at Gratitude Maven and at Your Intuitive Friend. Until next time, stay
magical.